I had refused to accept his request, and his letters the tone had become more and more unhelpful. Even he writes to me and went as far as threatening with an action, until I told them did not pay an amount of about £50, as he so called, a settlement dues that I was told I had done with. He said that if he goes to South Africa, I will give him every week. I never told the unpleasant details of this correspondence to my sister, but of course she knew she was in safe Africa, and she also knew the account was that the Archdeacon wall itself was worth it. Friday or Saturday, 9th or March 10th, I was successfully received Erica my brother a short and derogatory letter from Did should go and be threatened with all kinds of attacks, and if you refuse the spoon was in my pocket. I didn't have the answer, and I didn't mention my sister Veka, and neither did any in relation to our brother. In fact, I was only in some company. I felt that here was an opportunity to test the skills of the windshield. I have my 283 took out the letter from the pocket. It was in a lie. I folded it with the address and right inside. I then put the whole thing in another topic which I dealt with. I didn't write anything, there was no writing outside the external script, and I handed over the child. So my sister was taken away. She wanted that he would give this to the lower hand and ask her, the letter in that case, where is the author of? Please note that I have not done any sex work, and I'm pretty sure my sister was not aware that the author of the attached page 284 who is the letter? After the delay, an message came automatically writing, the author of the letter is dead. Already happened. This was done to me by my sister, and naturally was surprised. Do another test, for I asked another question, when and where did the author die? Then came the reply, saying that he died yesterday in South Africa. I then activated the Vanotex and did not indicate the place of origin of the letter, and answer, I remember. I was very funny, because there was a letter from South Africa which told me had just received. For a moment of that intuitive lapse of memory that sometimes ever affects us, I did not know that the letter, although on March 9 or 10 I received, was actually written some 3 weeks ago. In my form admittedly I was confused about the letter. That one was asking South Africa was where the brother I was inquiring about was, because I knew the opposite of it, Karjivit. My sister asked me what I want to ask more questions. 284 I just said, no, and I never told him anything about the facts until a few weeks after that letter. In the evening I returned to London, and on Monday in the morning I wrote a letter to my secret clerk, a letter addressed to my brother that wasn't actually sent. The following Saturday, March 17th, at Archdeacon a small letter of importance, lol, it's on March 5th, and it's on sale. Postmark is Kimball, March 5th, 1894, and March 27th postmark of London to me. This why did you get it? This letter, which is in my hand on it, gives me the value of those feet. Gives words which are cost to me brother, but very much of his conduct. Page 285 makes complaints and requests practically regularly certain arrangements should be made in respect of the Standing Bank of South Africa. The medium so unbelievable I was about the investment I had received. Although I remember worrying about this topic, I wrote a really long letter on March 29, 1894, at Archdeacon, in which I did not present myself in his name and promised to do as he said. Draft of that letter. The writings of my lover have struck me now. I received on April 2, 1894 another letter from Archdeacon Wall, Kynanky Kimball, March 8, 1894, which begins, Dear Sir, when I wrote last week I thought I must be indebted to you to indemnify your brother's death. 285 about, what happened yesterday, and he goes on to say that my brother morning he was found dead in the morning and was to be cremated that afternoon. I hardly need to say that this thought surprised me, and in every possible way to explain the communication after discussing, and making every language, I was convinced that the investment I had received was March 10. This physical communication came out through some agency. The telepathy, farsightedness, and paranoia have been completely eliminated. I am of the fact it was intuitive, when I asked the question on March 10, that my brother was dead. To my sister didn't know I was asking a question about my brother, or written by my brother even about the letter, and of course she didn't know it was dead. Short Wind Hill was never seen my brother, I wonder if he ever knew of existence, and she certainly had no knowledge of was that time in Africa, hence the fact that Saturday, March 10, 1894 I was told that my brother had died yesterday in South Africa. Page 286 I fully agree that this is not strictly universal, because in fact their death occurred early in the morning on March 8, but it weakens the conclusion in my opinion I made up, and it's quite possible that my sister read the new word ho tomorrow might have been Thursday, which was the cause of death. 286 If I am not in saying that this story cannot be explained by any one natural process, so I think I can continue to believe I'm fair, as I believe, that this was a supernatural ruse. The same interpretation of some of these phenomena will be shown, and if it not on the lines that I have indicated, and there is some other accounting for these money that doesn't include survival after death, I believe we can more will also learn something wonderful, most impossible, and certainly for those less acceptable who, like me, find comfort in our faith. Palliatinapni case The matter was received through Mrs. Traveling Sam had a cousin, who was an officer in the Krabish army, with whom a month before the meeting held in France was killed in a fight. Mrs. Travel Sam. The girl was aware of the death of her cousin. Ukaname Wijabodag page 287 but was written unexpectedly and his name was returned to him in response to the question, do you know who I am? Then the following inputs was done, 287 Tell mom that the girl I want to marry, she got my pearly dye cup. They are. I think they should be. Full character and surname of woman come on, the latter is too unusual for Mrs. Traveling Able or the Commissioner and carry unknown. An address was made in London which turned out to be a mistake, as a letter sent there did it back. Women thought that as they knew, then down the wrong way moved or permanent, the case will no longer be selected, but 6 months it was later discovered that the officer was one Traveling Able, Helen, Voice from the Void, London, W.M. Ryder & Co. Automation 97 Yi, shortly before leaving for France, and the woman whose name was Ouijaboard but there was a cry. Neither his family Ireland nor his cousin, the commission was, however, subject to the fact that he had it until after his death. Never seen or even called his name, when the War Office forwarded to. In them he discovered a pearl, the dye cup, and the name of the woman was mentioned in the bill as her next kin. Identity and surname both are being obtained in the same way as both sit. The women signed a document to the effect that the message was time was recorded and after that the memory was not transmitted. This statement was then sent to William Barrett. Page 288 Direct experience of the spirit world about mid-year ago, according to their division of Earth's time therefore, I came out of my physical body, and entered the celestial world. What did we call our world here because of the heavenly world? Free of form, we are free to move between celestial bodies because we choose, and I have chosen to do so. Anyway, let this world heal. They can also be called ethereal or spiritual worlds. Celestial, ethereal, spiritual. You know very well that the airspace is ethereal, this ethereal spiritual, celestial, and filled with physical bodies or forms, that this form is different in both size and performance. Shortly after leaving my physical body, finding that I was still alive and was not dead, I came back to you and died a little girl in writing a book. We dare to call it the book The Discord Country, for the very good reason that I discovered a country whose page 289 page 290 I knew little or nothing about. Indeed, a country whose I knew nothing about it, because I took a little time to excuse myself. Even that was not raised on the subject of so-called life after death. Dear brother who has recently come here with me Coburg, in Troll I believed that death had done away with something. Oh, I hope sometime was, I knew nothing, had nothing to believe, and as Mr. Introll, those who stand by my side now say, it is thus a matter of trusting a bunch of lies. It was better. Our spiritual destiny is like the written pages of one book, clean and as ready to use as possible in reverse. Dear Kyle, I don't lie to you when I say so. My dear friend and ally, Robert G.L. Enroll, stand my side now, and we're together will dictate letter. Let the cheers know who care. Ridicule and zero hasn't achieved much yet, they do very little, even that, to break the error. It's far better to cast the fine truth on the side of the error, and let the supervisor know and the student discovers the difference between the two. In the book I wrote, it's called Discovered Country / I told you earlier have detailed some of the months of my life and experiences here in Celestial Kava. Now after being a resident within this world, I am sure Roop can tell you more than I was capable of at that time. However, what I wrote to you then is a letter, and now I am among them. Add to the experience of years 290. But first I want to tell you something about us, friend Rob. Them and me, page 291. The experiences were never the same, because no two souls can tell the same story. Can't tell exactly. When I was born in the celestial world, my father and mother gave my soul accepted, even though they had hidden from me the fact that they were my parents, and together they were my other half, complementing my own soul. All three to me are unknown. For all who have read The Discarded Country, remember the account, but ours friend Robber was received by many very few authorities, with great admiration and waving banners. These people, the banners with them, were real and were visible in their eyes, and these but banners were words, sentences and symbols for all that was on top of a banner. The soul had become twisted because of a mistake, in other words, that the wrong arm was our friend Rob had put a chain in him. His soul is freed, and thus the host met them with banner and huzzah. At first he thought that he had become and was watching, not knowing that the body was free, and in fact it was not at that time when the vision first saw them. Spirituality was struck, but gradually things took a permanent form and right. His terrestrial body would have been as cool as the celestial view in his eyes. Was bright and bold, and at present he was able to read many of these banners. Was 291. As I myself was present, I will tell you what happened. I am striking. Your welcome is the quake of hope, dear Bob. On the other hand, the star was shining, and below were the words, a star is a real world, and hope is as real as the stars. On the other hand, hope on, hope ever, and these words a whistle below. Do you know the end of the whistle, dear brother? And page 292. Another, the symbol of the cross, was an accelerated spirit world. 5. With Jesus' representation of the work of a crane nailed to the tree, with the words, I die, I want you to be alive. While they were resting, Robbie's eyes captured an elaborate expression. Did this symbol, because he was very surprised. The standard bearer came and went straight. He stood beside her. Would you know the meaning of the symbol, Rob? He asked. You've said in the past, when I die. I have died, Capre Cometre, and you are alive. I die, that you live. Human body crucified. Hua is the Savior, because his body never died, his soul was free. Can't be. On the other side, a blazing upon banner, of Pottle Lock represents, and a word, burn the earth and protect them, and a beautiful soul escaping the burnt form of a spirit Amy. On the other hand, a man, a woman, and the tree of life. Oh, I never believed that bottom of the Eden story, murmured 292 Roberg, and neither did I, but now I do. It was an ancient symbol, and IKA meaning a woman represents life, through her or the feminine element. Yes, life comes into existence. The pig represents the beginning of knowledge. At first there is less intelligence and the earth crawls on the feet, but ascending age progresses, knowledge becomes a beautiful woman, knows good from evil is, because they have eaten up the fruit of the knowledge of both good and evil, or rather, life was ignorant at first, but wise in the end. She not only gives life to human beings but also shares the same form with them. Page 293 is in knowledge and wisdom. She was the first one to break the cycle of knowledge in spirituality too. The first is knowledge and what they eat, and the spiritual voice, or your spiritual knowledge, called Jehovah God, in the comfortable time of whom I called them, and said, now you've reached a height where you have to have enough intelligence. Go on. Go up and till the soil that you live on over the beast, because now you are one of us is, or one with angels or spirits. Go ahead until that land suits you can eat and wear. And they went away, the man and his wife, or otherwise, the man, his wives and with families. The Old Hebrew version is plural and not singular. This time came on like a flash of light on Robbie. He looks at me now, saying, 293 I wish I had studied the Bible more, until I received would have held the key to the hidden meaning of the old scriptures, as well as the more modern New Testament. But, as I didn't, I will now. This knowledge and wisdom I want, and will be. There were many other banners, but we will not stop now to describe the most of them. 2. It's not my intention, dear Kyle, to write about Logan personal swagger by his more close relatives. This, so far as the world is not related. Whenever I talk about him, or he speaks for himself here, it's his public affairs, their personal conversations, and such facts that they would like to give to the world in general or to the native world, and now he says page 294 is, I, Robert G. Enroll, am now ready to take on a spiritual or of my experience in the heavenly world. Do you remember, my dear son, in my last writing, I wrote about your use and creation of the earth. The system that visited different planets. I am also so called it was Kamala. I talked about Aristotle and other eminent persons on earth. Why? I too had joined the other half of myself. Now, after this word, you suppose naturally I will fly into countless other worlds, but, the fact that they are so numerous and numerous that at length I would like to do so. Each person was doing some work, he could be the child who is like the sand. 294 starts to do the seaside and it takes an impossible task, so leaves it and turns his attention towards what he is able to do is. I learned that the work that was close to my hand was to be a glorious familiar with the laws, not only about me in the celestial and spiritual world, but they glorified the earth. I came to the earth where I was born and almost years had passed of the material life, and the inner voice, or the voice of the Lord, as it were, said to me, Franz, your work must be which you have forsaken the goodness of the earth, in fact, you must not leave him. A great is the natural law that compels the soul to work, each of the earths have left for the earth, and the souls have to live and work for these earths should, unless there is no need to take care of them any more. After all, it's really what drives me to many other worlds. Page 295. Well, guess I don't have any particular interest for the countless millions the world there are, some like sandbanks, and I like to spend my time sailing. Do not care without a charge, rudder, or vibration, aimless. I was tired when I had sailed among other worlds, and returned and joined a company of Pratimat. 7 Prati, who discovered the great natural laws with as much speed, inventive. 295 Establish yourself in the act of influencing people's intelligence within the body individuals, that knowledge can increase and result in better communication can, and very happy. I want it to be understood here that any advanced other parts of the angels themselves, children, men and women who are angels, make up for what I wrote to you in my last works. This is the law. I will not enter largely into this great natural law, because I do not. I want these letters to be repeated in my previous works, but with new words. New, the law is not mentioned in those books. I say new laws, new signs, but mine means recently discovered by me and others like me. Laws are for all, without beginning and without end. Things exist in circles, and circles have neither beginning nor end. I guess about anything I will not bring, but when something related to these letters in the negative form known, the facts will elevate me and the other angels who have reached me. On the earth's surface thousands may be different. I think they know more than me, but a fact that will remain in spite of fact and all differences. Page 296. Now, one of the first facts that I will mention here is, that a spiritual being never forgets anything that ever happened in his life on earth. No, when he was little, not covered, the opposite of sacrificial. He also remembers his every armor developed, when everything that ever fell in his eye, every sound he ever made. 296 I chose, every permission he ever granted, every one he even came into contact with, still are stored in his memory, uncontrolled like a scroll whenever he wishes, one not a little cloudy or dark, at least blurry or non-existent, but one afternoon he was like the sun in the bright sun and in the bright days. Now, how do I know? I know because it is a reality within my own individual consciousness. I know is because I am a spiritual being, free of physical or material body, and because I do remember everything that happened in my earthly life, even that's for the first time, but for the details of the command. I can't do this when right now their mind is able to perceive through the form of demand and money. But it is not so, change the fact of my own memory. When one speaks, as one believes, one is excessively loud, and as one might think, high vibrations, that is, about the vibrations in the physical form, one forgets that there are other rules as well. Counteracting the law. Lift the weight to counteract the vibrator. The great law of law is the law of the scientist. When an armor or string is once a man draws on the spirit of a woman or a child, it is there forever. Therefore, eternity is established. The soul is made of something more than vibration, and every law concerning the universal, the whole, is governed by the whole. Even sticks and stones are images, or retains the impressions of all that has ever been in them. The extent of the shadow cast, and why, is not far away, when many will come to know that they. Page 297, 297, page 298. How to be revealed in the picture, and if the impression, or other words, all those the memory of the first ever expansive rocks, woods, and walls, to be reproduced when man has acquired the required knowledge. What can be said about the Hoa, immortal, intelligent soul of man? In addition, the etheric atmosphere is a vast reservoir or storehouse, everything a grand picture live on earth, and when one throws the material, the body, he can read that which has ever happened in the past age. Most of all have been characterized with skill, even more so when they are actually had come to earth. These pictures are not static, but it is going on as if life is full, and you are just beginning to understand this law, but, now till, very ruthlessly, what will be achieved in future. Or ether anyway retains within its memory, as one might call it. Think, will the soul of the immortal ego be forgotten? No. We do not forget, on the soul of man forever, till the smallest acmits remain marked, and yes, relationship takes its knowledge that sometimes was, or is, or ever will be. One can also say that God forgets. Who can help bar one to forget anything? 298, page 299. And there are no eternal souls, but the eternal soul of the whole that acts within is God. Now, my friend Rob, who will stand by my side and take his turn. Waiting, he laughs long and kills, saying, if you want, let me say a word here. I don't have to forget that I was called by many, Bob, or old Bob and Roll, Cocker. Now we will return to the topic of goal. What is proof for one is not for the other. Is, so that the proof must come to each individual, and to each individual others must present their proof in a different way. One person to another reveals that he has actually seen the soul form of his father or mother, other answers, you probably wished you did. You think, there's no don't doubt it, but I'm not sure you actually did. I have never seen my father or my mother. Don't believe that someone ever seen a soul, but, let me tell you what, my friend, I believe that my father and mother have both written. Lets me enter the web writing medium. A medium. Answers the other. You have been cheated. 299. Don't believe a message was ever written without a human hand, a nation but. And so it is with every stage of spiritual communication. This same letter, which page 300 me and my friend Rob are writing now, would be suspicious. Many people will say, we never trust any spirit or spirits, it had nothing to do with it, and thus it is. He who for one evidence is not even a confession for the other. Are there those people who say, when science proves that the soul comes back, well, we will believe, but what they will do is that the science which would have been a genius is, some other scientific law is discovered which counteracts it first and sends it one way. If science is to be accepted, the reflection in that direction will end, but now all are convinced of the fact of immortality, and the divine soul the return, the way in itself, the way that appeals directly to itself and forces the truth to each one. then the world's leggings be confident of the great and eternal death world of the spirit, 15 celestials with residents of the world who belong to the ethnic area. My friend Robert, do you have a word to say on this important subject? Well, not much, I guess, but if I could see the ghost, when I was in the body, might have believed my senses, but still I can't say that any other man would have trusted me. 300 I thought, at one time, that when I came to die, make me your consciousness should keep till the last end, and tell my friend together my son with close and dearest people, when I can see other lives, may choose or choose, if any, page 301 but, when I started to think more about it, I concluded that most people will say, oh, that was delirium / or he was sick, he was taking the drug / and now I think this joke would have been better would have been said by many. It can't really do anything. Yes, it was. As it was, I didn't even have time to tell my wife that I believed I was dying, very little to tell him what my feelings were. I have now got those mortal lips, when the soul turns away from them, I cannot speak that mortal eyes cannot see when the soul's eyes are moved, those mortal ears cannot hear when the spiritual pandemonium has survived, that mortals the heart does not beat when the spiritual rhythm has become poetry. My clothes are like this was that the killer was running from a shell or prison, is flying in one of his cages happy like a bird, yet he is spiritual, immortal even for a moment. Does not beat, rhythm, or beat, done without leaving the body, that's all, only as soon as my vision took them did leave, and when I was completely out of it, it was a lump of clay have done, or will have done so that it is not supported by those 301 did what I loved me but they love no longer couldn't do that thing. I left my former body, so they burnt them as they were wanted? Get up, darlings, I'm behind them. Child spirituality has never increased in the present times, in the form of celestial it is much easier for the world to know the inhabitants of the earth than before. If a person cannot, get the death, it is not forced upon him can be done by the angels, and even if it were, he would in a way reflect them as a demonic entity. Page 302 in, and this is what Jesus meant by the parable of rocky ground. Tertiary root and fungus can't happen when someone has nothing. My son, you have often asked me the question, what did you do? The person who ever lived on earth like Jesus Christ. And I will always give you functionally done. The people of Jesus Christ lived, walked, and lived on earth, but you tell me, there are many here on earth today who say that there has never been such a person. My dear son, such people are wrong. But you say, Dad, how do you know that are they wrong? And I answer, I, personally, saw Jesus and have talked with him. The meaning of the month is the supernatural one, or the one who was anointed as a priest. 302 Nothing really wonderful, is it? Are you a minister or teacher of spiritualism? Has been appointed as, and in that direction to benefit the world trying. Jesus did the same thing in his classes on earth. Lord Rudd understand you they also got him wrong. Misinterpreted the words that you said has been, the mistake is understood, he had words too, many of them. I have had many interviews with Jesus of Naruth, have spoken with him face to face, lived at a time, and he lashed out at me a lot is kindly. I am also Kamala and along with many other great, good and famous negotiated men who once lived on earth. Is there a good reason why I don't wanted to do my life would be here if I weren't there would be little purpose page 303 would. I have made a point of meeting all the great and good people who are near me. Wherever chose when I lived on earth, and I visited many others who lived in distant ages far back of the earth, that their names are not known to you earth today. I can speak of these later, but this is of Jesus I will speak now. Those who are provoking the question that in the present era, they are studying the earth through men. To which I would like to specifically answer. The argument seems to be, was Jesus alive, or did he? 303 No. And many people come face to face about this question, so think that those who think that he is not alive will believe me they are other spiritual the authorities do more than what is said that he lived. There are many souls here that don't believe he was ever alive, and that he went to meet them and say, I am the one who was once called Jesus of Narada. We do not believe this. You are a letters world of souls he. 17 poster. You wish to take credit for what does not belong to you. So what does it matter? Spiritual beings will control and blame the mediums. No such person ever lived. These souls, perhaps, their beliefs honest, and won't bother finding out. In addition, they are very like human beings who are still on earth. They deserve praise, they are in authority, want to be taken, and get some of them that do not measure and pretend they are great, really great. But, my son, as I did before, page 304 said, I have had a lot of time to meet this man of Naruth and his if so, listen to his applause. But I could never do it for the great fact of soul memory. If there was a Jesus and when he comes he can't remember anything in this world, was 304 about his past life on earth, when nothing would have been in vain, and then as for the spirit, he had never heard of Jesus of the prophet, much glad it was possible to find him and talk with him. But when Jesus met, he remembered something else about his earthly life. He was more than willing to give me the information I wanted. Now I wanted proof that he was Jesus, but for the sake of memory, I could never get. Jesus called some of his former disciples after him, then I became acquainted with many other people who lived there in Jerusalem. During his life, and, another still believed it was the baby Jesus, and, as one thing can be considered established through several channels, I sure that he was Jesus, and addressed all who met him and I him in the same form of Jesus. There was no voice of pride, so in choosing me completely safe, what can I say, because it bear in mind that I remember. I asked this man from Narad if he would see me. Private interview, if we can be alone and unattended for a time. They agreed with a smile and were happy to leave us. Maybe, my son, you first of all, would like to know something about our environment. When I found him spiritual, page 305, a large section of the population had just been rejected, and they were slowly leaving the one in the big hall when I been in it. Then I 305 anything seen, world of learning. This hall was so big that almost 1,000 souls and best souls without even being able to see the marbles. Roof was dumb, his color monhay blue, flies here and there weed with rain. The whole system of life is represented inside the balloon, sun, moon, planets, and stars. This was the system of our own experiment, Kyle, my son, and words can't you get a fair idea of its beauty and grandeur. This beautiful hall I had regular lines, souls for the spiritual, when they are calm and attentive, themselves live as you do on earth. The carriages were shining brightly gold, red velvet. The girls had no shame, very enchanting to watch. There were 3 lines of marble leading to the rostrum, the color of which was green. The plush carpet was covered, and here and there it was covered with violets. There were nice and little roses. Rostrum wall half circle center with girl. I looked at the girl in surprise, because the Savior crucified on them was painted, and under the cross representation of Mary with the infant representation Jesus. A large open Bible, elegantly lined upholstered desk, high-end sleeping table, page 306 page 307. The stone apparently on which Jesus was sitting, it was red of velvet, and I took the distance in which blue and gold predominate, because he said, Bait, her franc/gentle, courteous, in a silvery tone. I was very surprised by what I saw now, but it was not like that I was in many other creations that happened to me when I was in the heavenly host was involved. What will you do to me? He turned and asked. Publication, late eyes are full on me. I held my head, because I wanted to ask other questions, and so I answered, I have so many questions that I want you to answer, I hardly know where to begin. I met the Son of Man before, but he was an alien in the field, where he sat at the table. The disciples, if not his former disciples, were his present disciples. Suppose, he suggested, you start at the beginning. What start? I stumbled. The beginning of the beginning, he replied. The beginning of the beginning? Well, I said. Letter from Siri Varga. 19. Taking my breath slowly, can you tell me something about the beginning of the beginning? 307 page 308. No, he replied, and as soon as he saw mine, the magnetic force was really amazing. Currency, since you can't tell me anything about the beginning, maybe you can tell me. Can you tell me something about bar 1? Maybe I can tell you something about it, Lord, he replied, because if you want to heal me, is there a kind of blessing about which you wanted to know? What kind of God? Why, it's supposed to be but a God. I know nothing of a God, he replied. But you said on earth that you were the only beggar, son of God, not. I never did, he replied. I said so much, I and my Father is one. Well, that's also a wise saying. You've told me before that you what they actually meant, but I wish my son and other people to tell about it one more time. I said, I and my Father are one, which means that I existed with the one who raised me, and the one who raised me could never have started. There is no end. I also said that I should go to my Father or he but the one who raised me. I didn't mention my family in any sense, because I was teaching heaven or spiritual things. 308. I simply said to my late father. Well, but that's what I got. Want to know more about? What did you mean by your own father? Page 309g. I meant I was born within heaven. That was the first reason I was there. Was not the soil of the earth. Did you say you were born a holy man? Ghost. I did, he replied. Did. Then what did you understand by the Holy Spirit? I understood then, now like, that ghost is spirit, although ghost wasn't the word I used was, but as you don't understand ancient languages, I'm just so where is the ghost i.e. spirit, as the people of the earth understand even today. Siddha of the Holy Spirit means pure soul. You meant, then, that you were born of pure spirit. I did. I meant that I the ego or the rest of my life the real cause of life was the pure soul. I went through Kramik's law had assumed a physical form, of course, because this progressive it is through development that all forms are taken on. I meant that I came to the spiritual world, to return to the spiritual world for, who was my father, or the first cause of my being. The Lord who lived on earth, with me at that time, could not understand me, because besides them the person 309 had no idea about anyone else. Mighty though, I've had a lot teach was the Brahmins of India. I was also a natural architect when I was born, and I mean man on earth. What does inventive or medium mean? That is, I was a natural inventive or medium, that I stood among my Father, which means spiritual or divine, and mankind in general, interceding for them, whose directed meant praying light and praying that it might be done to them. Page 310. Did you, when on earth, perform miracles? I did many things which were called miracles at that time, but the word miracle kidha means marvelous, that which causes wonder or astonishment. Did you heal the sick? I did. Did you raise the dead? I didn't. I said no, he's not dead like you. Let's say, but it's falling. Your words of the time were catastrophic or unnatural. Sleeplessness were in a conscience, and this was the picture. How did you make them live and health? It was the power of the Spirit or the spiritual force, because, I said, to do these things I am not the one, but my Lord is heaven who does these things through me / and have already told you what I mean to my Father in heaven. 310. You may find it difficult to know what's wrong with me. Current time. I love that I have a wonderful child to be quiet in them with my dear wife. As you well know, I have my own the other self or the child of my being. Of course all our children are infants and living for each other in whatever way suits them best. All our grandchildren are located in the same way. We've reached that point in our careers when we and leave aside the educated, our children are not as advanced as we are. Our city is more beautiful than anything you've ever seen on earth, and yet it corresponds to many things out there. It's a big building, page 311, because we often become helpless in newborn souls and their care so long as they are able to take care of themselves. Helena busy with herself taking care of unfortunate and helpless women, reading them and children principles, as they are imparted, to be strong and self-care of helpless children who come before them. We need to take care of those who say that they have made our house with pearls. Good mother, look at the most beautiful shells you've ever seen, and then do it many times more. STLL awesome, and you'll have a fair. The concept will be the material used in the construction of our city. This is a big. The rooms are in number and they are also big and grand, the letters of the head class. 41,311 Because when I was on earth, I loved all that was big and beautiful. We have a huge music room full of all kinds of musical instruments, another big hall left for all types of education and investment, they're in different branches of knowledge and art. We also have immense palgar, or sword room, where the spiritual avenue receives the visitor, and whenever we do something remarkable, wish to see the person, we have to wish or desire only sincerity, and immediately the vibrational waves established in our etheric environment, the spiritual brain or access the camera's sanatorium, and, if inconvenient, the spirit will follow us. Will come, or if not, then we go to what we want to see. Now, Kyle, I'm not going to tell you lies, but the real and exact fact. Spiritual beings will not be happy floating here and there object or any type of space medium more than is or will be on Earth. Human beings can swim without water in this way, if they wish, or page 312 shelter, who can raise what they might be able to do looking for, but when they do so they are called vagabonds or vagabonds, and with this exception it is the same here too. Whosoever acquires knowledge, he will take it. Ready for them or asking, nothing compels them to live in Ribe if they don't want to, but our mind or soul is of Ribe and wealth. Now we have something here that matches food or drink, so our nearby is a large and unusual dining hall in which we receive many guests. We don't cook, eat like you do, but we're at the table together 312 but are sitting with our guests, and when we share in the happiness, apparently, but we hold on for a long time of wine and water, water and wine, and keep. Let's discuss all questions about mankind, all those who have spiritual realities are interested in, and you can be sure that we have is sufficient. Our rooms take on the form of a beautiful apparition of all the beauty in the earth life, in the art. So this is where it originates and transmits the sensations on the basic plane. Is done, that's how you get models of beauty there, except what's natural equips you, and our musical instruments have been made, or so delicately designed, that vibrating sound only vibrates the ethereal atmosphere. As a result, the sounds are not audible to the sound, physical ears. Our rooms seem to be covered in soft rugs of the rich. Panning. I forgot to mention that we have a great deal of valuable books. Page 313. There is also a library, so good books are present here like the earth. So be careful, writers, that you don't write anything to be ashamed of when you reach here. We have some pretty cool cards, labels, and all kinds of cute things. Nicer. Our sleeping or resting rooms, wet and misty, wet drains are fairy are equipped, 313. But we make all these things by our own karma and objective things. We become what we can enjoy and others with us. So, dear of the earth, exercise your creative abilities to their fullest. It's good will pay you for doing so, because they are some treasures that are in heaven or lives in the heavens. No one else can live here, within the ether, without creating a greater one on earth. Or ask, a gap in someone's armor becomes objective or visible, and one has happened to him. It is indeed so on earth, but good senses are there. Doesn't take science. One has become wise to his own shields, and less resilient. Do it, or don't think of these things. How many times have you heard some people say, I don't like this or that one, I love them, I feel scary when in his presence. How many times is there life on earth, which does not pay attention to these things, is deceived, or ultimately robbed or ruined because they have meditated didn't do them. I wrote to you in the Discord country that the spirit is present in all those things. Who has life, ascends this life, when those things seem to be dying or collapsing. Is the earth, and this is the sign, as a result, we have everything here that you have there. Page 314. Do you? 314. We have vast forest plains, mountains, rivers, seas, continents, all kinds of fate, animal and insect life in their various forms, flowers, bushes, streams, ponds, nothing is left, but much is added. On the contrary, what you never saw, because we have what we have in the past, it can now, it is said on earth, and we have chosen the sayings, that within them there is enough, there will be no space for the celestial sphere to hold all these things. Us, guess who's to say that to entertain these very streams want eternity? Do such minds ever stop to ponder that eternity, it has no insurance, or insurance that it is forever and ever? Know how to do it for someone, but how can one set a limit to a never-ending eternity or space? Can it? However, the forms of the earth have a limit or end, but the limits are so great that the karma on earth could not possibly take them inside. Eternity full of all kinds of forms, and eternity which has no beginning or end, insurance or no insurance. So, when I tell you, Kyle, that we are one, the lake is located near the Sundar, it needs no surprise to you. The lake bears the same correspondence that lakes do to the earth. Ether water compared to ether water is as heavy in the atmosphere as the air on the earth, and here page 315, page 316, swirl fish deep under water, the souls of the dead on earth, and this is as with animals, they rise above the other. But nothing propagates its species here. On all promotional material the earth, and the earth cannot propagate, nor can celestial waves much needed. Other than that, it's overcrowded, and there are vast areas of space so vast, in fact, no human mind can them, in which there is no form yet. When wild animals die on earth, their spirits are great in the spiritual jungles that are so wild and bountiful that human souls can hardly, never or ever does not go to see him. When great sea monsters die, or small fish, their souls go up and down to the limitless spiritual great search within. The globe of your earth, which you think is so huge, but a small one like the karma, or the sand, then eternity, and its eternity sky. The matter is so much that the mind of a man cannot think of these things. I think forms come into being through material, not they can be, but eternity to fill them with brilliance and wisdom, not to be protected only intelligence of mankind, but less intelligence of animals, birds, animals 316, and the fishes, for nature these forms are as beautiful as men. What, page 317? You never stop thinking, my dear son, that there are other earths or planets in space, whose inhabitants of the earth are so many that man is a creature for them, as will be revealed to man what the earth does. However, it is a fact, but the ruling planets are totally too much to say that the wise are, oh, swine man, don't be immortal on that small, insignificant earth can, because they know very well that whatever forms are immortal and non-destructive as everything you have inside a tiny ether on earth, the next germ, the spiritual soul that must be within the terrestrial seed, whatever kind it is, and each after its kind. And right here man makes a mistake, because the spiritual nature of everything in existence, germs or those that ever were or will ever exist, forever in the ethereal atmosphere are, and as it ether enters the material through the atmosphere at the root of all formations, attract and hold, each in its own way, therefore of all the animals, therefore of all men. Men and animals bite or kill these insects, take the difference, man, or positivity, holds what is used, other escapes because they are indestructible in leaving the skin or any part of the body through the water, through the pores of 317. The first form of anything is not the seed of what is to come, do it within yourself. Such an argument is admittedly funny, but of anything the parent creates the seed of those who have the power to hold spirituality. Follow up immediately. Have gradually evolved one form after another, but they do not develop spiritual bacteria, but each form of germs, page 318, is able to hold, which he knows for the coming generation environment, which is to be followed. This then completes the circle. At this age, the next generation breaks into puberty and catches the other germs that are the seeds of future generations, and that all creatures and animals are symbols for life. Now ask me about heredity. Spiritual germ heredity, it has nothing to do with it. This confession is pure and pure, but as soon as it first wears material clothes, coverage meets, or at least several traits of, a parent. First father ether in his blood is the germ of clothes, and then his mana, he is filled with shame. Dresses the virus accordingly and for the heredity tendencies, and the child is also more responsible than the mother. It doesn't present life or the living principle Roru that is negative, and she has no power to hold him. She is a woman, but she presents an egg, or a hummus. The germ enters them and is then nourished by the egg contents. Is done until enough material has been taken to do or burn the physical in the jar. 318 If the germ is of a mammal, the egg hatches after a short time when it is ready. Is however, there is nourished by the mother's body, being ready to be born. Till. Heredity force is what is found in the nature of the soul. The world 45 The father or mother is wearing a cloth. That's why kids page 319 parents are similar to theirs, but soul, inner principle, tarnished not, at least, sooner or later, either in content, or spiritual, or celestial life, it becomes fulfilled as before, and material, spiritually, through the celestial is gradually on its course, just checking for errors as long as it is a god angel or archangel or very wise and superior angel, like what man can do and man cannot do. Such an angel, what to do when he is so small and inside a physical body, developed as being human. But means nothing. Nothing is unimportant, nothing will ever be it can. We are not the creators of anything, so we have to have no right to despise the thing, whatever it may be, when it is a small insect or not even a worm. Virtuoso does not arise from man, he only sees it, and he 319 The closer one comes to the angel, the less he does within the universe to despise anything that exists. Is God for all, I am blessed. There is no innocent pleasure or pleasure that is denied to the soul of man, and he can also indulge in shatmut or happiness if he is so inclined, but, when one understands well that all kinds, any kind, directly suffering leads to misery, in other words, hell, he will neither sin nor will break natural laws if he understands them. It is the soul or spirit that actually enjoys some and not of the physical body, as some feel page 320 to find, and as the soul ascends higher and higher in its fields, happiness increases even more. The physical earth is only a sphere, yet it is not the first circle or the beginning. The inner germinal field is the first field of ether's atmosphere, that is, as far as I know myself, Earth's circle is the other circle, the celestial sphere is the third sphere, and there the soul emerges in many areas which are necessary. Is not to be done here, but our world is full of details kind. Man lives on Earth for maybe 3 years and a half, possibly 320, overwhelming. He feels as he walks through life that when it have to cover. He often becomes impatient because of his smallness, but his whole existence is made in seconds and hours, days, months, days, and this is me too. We don't spend time like you do, to be sure, but our lives are made of small details or events, and we make our time in the second life, the small creations of our own lives and the great creations that mark eternity. Now I want to tell you something about my journey. On Earth you are a city travels to another city, you travel from one end to another, you travel from one country to another, you travel around the world, and so on. Kind Siri class paper 47 Come. We travel from one place to another, we travel from one planet to another, we travel from one planet to another, our other, and sometimes we take a turn through the zone of the sky, as it is called on Earth, but, in fact, it is a page 321 and the area is Kavshal, Sun, Moon, planets, and Earth. I am only speaking here. These things in form of you understand them, because almost all the planets are Earth except the Sun, and these are not, as will ever be discovered. It will also be revealed that all yugas are dual in their nature, both have real bodies. Is being composed of elementary principles, and it is a game of two elements behind that cause light and heat. 321 The real bodies of the sun are not visible to man, Are they not that blazing light that they produce, and this light is actually a burning, there is a burning light, and there is a vehicle. You have often seen flashes of electricity. Is not it? And you know that the cause of electricity is the collusion of the elements, and as they the other and an explosion in such a way that bright gives kamak. Now the two primary hand pumps work in the same way, like each seems, each moves away from its primary principle, and as these elements meet, bring in each other and the vehicle is the result. The actual heap of the sun is not that big by several degrees, as some openers think. Never saw anything but the result of these two forces. Blazing light is visible but not the two bodies of sun itself. In my book Oceanide, in the discovered also the country / I detailed these two body and how they first came into existence, and why I have didn't personally visit UE. I won't be able to tell you. Want page 322 about it. Openers still have a lot to learn, and their whirlwind and fire mist not only principles, nor is there an old and familiar world, but a 322 not a child's world yet worthy of living, and this is your earth's child, then too in the leading wires. Who can, for a moment, assume that the is the moon old? No, these planets have been assigned to them, they are his children. All nature runs in circles or families, with the father, mother, and child, or the third form of the positive and negative theory, and then many others, the creation of forms. The souls that directed the book of Camille Flemmer on it was they discovered no fault for the latest moon recently have come into existence and have not been adequately rectified, as even the best of binoculars can hardly be seen. The spirits that do not control this great theologian, as a rule I think it's too much for them to make people work what they want to tell. Our psychic was a good, negative woman, two better results would have been obtained. Children are found in almost all females. Male is completely positive, and a large part of the worms and insects are found in them. Still, there are a few inspirational lecturers and many inspirational writers. Among the authors Andrew can be mentioned, J. DeCav, Hardin Paul, Joel R. Buchanan, page 323.